God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. That, as many of you know, is the Serenity Prayer. It's meaningful to me as a poetic statement and a prayer for a couple reasons. I'm coming to you from my hometown of Elmhurst, Illinois, and in a little bit headed to the wake for my grandfather who passed away this week. My whole family here is Catholic, and prayer is a strong tradition in my family. It's probably the most significant connection that I have in my family culture to poetry. Stories, religious stories, spiritual music, and prayer. And I share the Serenity Prayer with you in particular because, as many of you know, it was adopted by the Alcoholics Anonymous community and that movement as a core saying, core poetry, core prayer. And my grandfather, whose life we're celebrating, he got sober in 1980 or so, and Alcoholics Anonymous was his way of maintaining his recovery and his salvation and his community for the remainder of his life. He was very proud of his sobriety and proud of his participation in AA. And so I'm just wanted to celebrate that, his life, and share that with you through this prayer. And I also, interestingly, the prayer was composed by American theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, who was someone who I was introduced to through my undergraduate religious studies coursework. And it turns out that Reinhold Niebuhr ended up serving as a professor at a small college in this town, the Elmhurst College. And so in the middle of this town, just a couple miles away, is a big, more than life-size bronze statue of Reinhold Niebuhr, and ingrained in the bottom of that statue is the Serenity Prayer. And so it also brings me home. Yeah, and that means a lot. So I share that with you as a way of kicking off our final Creative Arts Therapy Exploration Week, Week 9, and Poetry Therapy. And in a way it's meaningful for me, and I imagine that a lot of you will be sharing words, literature, poetry, and stories that are meaningful to you. And it carries on so nicely from the work from last week. So I want to thank Joy and Fofier and Taryn for your performance pieces that you shared via video, and the richness that you brought to that process, and the way that you expanded kind of the boundaries of, I think, what some of us construe as drama or drama therapy or theater, and bringing in your own experiences in a very, very palpable way. And then I love the dialogue that Taryn and Fofier added as a video. It's a great additional tool that you modeled about how to enrich our spaces online. So appreciating that, and I'm looking forward myself to this week's video shares from Amber, Yale, and Karen around literary arts and the power of this modality as you three experience it, and the discussions that will follow. And this will be our final week of this sharing. So let's enjoy the websites. There's a couple there, and enjoy the reading. Something that stood out to me that I invite you to find and explore yourself is this triad of elements, which in the chapter Kaufman and all have the triad of poetry therapy is the literature, the clinician, and the participant. So the other dimension that I want us to be very sensitive to, I'm trying to practice it right now, is word choice. And when we get to language, when we language things, when we put words to them, notice the word choices you're making in real time. Let this week be an opportunity for all of us to raise our consciousness about our languaging of things. So it's interesting in this chapter to use literature, clinician, and participant. And I want to remember Kathy Moon's work, which has always heightened my sense of all my aesthetic lenses, and how Kathy likes to play with this idea of clinician, therapist, facilitator, practitioner. So part of what we can do this week, and as we get to the ending of this class, is to begin to notice our language. And I invite you all to sit with the languaging and how these different words had different meaning. All the different words we might use for someone who provides therapy, express arts therapy, or mental health services. And then all the words we might use to describe those who seek those services and use those services. The ones, this is the participant in this chapter. There's also patient. So clinicians tend to have patients, therapists tend to have clients, facilitators or practitioners tend to have participants. So interesting, even just in the core one-on-one relationship, that we can language it so many different ways. So I wanted to play with that. And finally, also noticing just all the ways that this modality stands out from all the other means of communication. So I want to have us also be spending this week noticing and exploring, maybe playing with the way that text and verbal communication shows up. And when you select that type of communication, when do you select speech versus text? How do you engage and encounter text messaging, not just in texting, but also like in literature and written down words, versus speech? When do you pick up the phone versus texting someone? What is the qualities of a voicemail or this recording of my voice added with the video? How does that differ from if I wrote it all down and had you read it? So there's something that we can all learn as expressive arts practitioners and scholars and artists of literary methods in how human beings engage with written and oral communication in all its many ways. So just some prompts for us as we go into this week, and I know you're all very generative and very careful with words, and so I appreciate that the whole semester, and this week will of course be no different. And so I say to you all in closing, farewell, and the meaning of I wish you well, and wherever you are going, farewell and not goodbye, but I wish you farewell this week, and look forward to connecting and watching the discussion. All right.